Chapter 1, 2425, Earth. New Geneva, the jewel of the Allied planets, hung above the shadowed guts of the dredges like a gleaming Elysium. The metal-slatted faux sky that split the two worlds cast its silent taunt down onto the grime-choked underbelly below. The neon lights of the cracked, ruined alleyways flickered like dying stars, casting sickly shadows of green and purple across the darkened brick and concrete of the Undercity. A rumbling hum of industry permeated the air in an unending cacophony, a constant reminder of the dismal inevitability of cheap labor that fed the utopian ideals that loomed above them. Among the dark streets and ruined buildings, the shanty Scragtown stood with rusted corrugated sheeting and rotting, moss-covered wooden beams that threatened to collapse under their own weight. The endless sea of shanties lay as a testament to the squalor of those who dwelt here. The criminals, revolutionaries, and runaways of Scragtown often quoted the popular mantra, "The rest of the dredges are for the workers, the slaves of the AP. Scragtown is for us, the true dredge of society." In the dim, gray light, 16-year-old Aurora Vale hunched on the rotted sill of a filthy window. Tangled blonde hair hung around her shoulders, a single violet bang falling across her forehead. The panes that weren't boarded up with cracked, worn wood were covered with a thick layer of filth that made it nearly impossible to see through. Her bright emerald eyes peered through a strip of smeared grime, staring up at the faux sky of the dredges. Slim fingers toyed with a silver locket, engraved with a star field, that hung from her neck on a tarnished chain. Along the rusted walls behind her, loose pieces of scrap paper were plastered, displaying complex technical schematics and calculations drawn by hand. "It's time, Aurora," a familiar, snarky voice buzzed in her brain. "They're not going to return." Aurora averted her eyes from the cold steel grating that made up the dredge's sky and glanced down at the threadbare doll that had been carelessly cast aside. Her eyes were swollen and dry. She couldn't produce any more tears, even though she desperately needed to. She exhaled, her voice low as she whispered, "Oh, Milo," and stepped away from the window, lifted the doll to her reddened eyes, then let her arms fall, the little rag figure dangling limply between her fingers. With a sigh, she set it gently on the teal-painted dresser, her fingertips lingering on the greasy fabric. "It's no use fretting about them, Aurora," Pulse hummed. "They're gone. We will be too if you don't make up your mind now." She returned to the window, her gaze returning to the sight of the cold, slatted surface, and her tenor shifted, soft, detached. "How long until she departs, Pulse?" she hummed to herself. "It's going to be a rough go of it. The streets are buzzing with enforcer drones," Pulse grumbled. "You waited too long. The odds of reaching the ship now are low," he ticked with a cold precision in her brain, calculating the exact odds. "Let's just say it's really low." "It's so dangerous out there, especially after what happened to Jax and Tess." She glanced back at the doll. "And Milo." The stupid thing looked like it was judging her, like everyone always did, as if to say, "You should have gone after them, it's all your fault." Her gut twisted, and she shoved the thought down, hard, then frowned as she silently mouthed the words to the abandoned doll. "I know." Her voice cracked. She couldn't manage even a whisper. Her frame shuddered under the imaginations of what perverse horrors might have befallen poor Tess. Poor Milo. There was nothing she could do about it. Her ship had literally come in. Alara's hand clasped the locket tight in her grip again, and with a jolt of a defiance, she snapped, "I've been waiting 4 years for the Aurora to make port here at New Geneva. If I miss it this time, who knows when I'll have a chance." With a mechanical sigh, Pulse squawked, "You have 22 minutes and 35 seconds to make it to the spaceport, but they're not going to just let you on board because your mommy told you to." After the artificial intelligence crisis of the late 21st century, independent AI had been outlawed. The surviving AI required by strict laws to be integrated into willing hosts in a symbiotic relationship. The mind of the symbiote host and their AI merging together. Pulse, however, functioned wholly independently from Aurора's mind, and this alone made it dangerous for her to wander too far from the safety of her decrepit shanty, especially while the enforcer drones were out en masse. She turned her attention back to the window, trying to clear her thoughts of the suffocating guilt that mounted in her chest. Her mind jumped to her mother. She could still hear her voice, even though she barely remembered her face. "If you are ever alone, seek out the Aurora." "I will, Mom." She touched her cybernetic arm, fingers sliding along the rusted plating that covered the stump of her left limb. Jagged gears ticked beneath the surface, fighting through tangled nests of exposed wiring. "If it hadn't been for me," she gulped hard, pushing back the choking sob rising in her throat, "you both would still be alive. The smell of ionized air and burning ozone, the last I remember of them. I can't fail this. The only bridge back to who we were, what they wanted." Her chest tightened, and heat rippled through her skin as rage and grief tangled. Her parents' deaths, the disappearance of her friends. She was ready to burst. "No, there's no time for that. I have to get to the Aurora." The roar of the drone engines rumbled outside along the dark alleyways. The whir of their propulsion blades reverberated against the concrete, causing a resounding whoomp, whoomp sound to echo in the distance. "Careful, kid," Pulse buzzed. "They're close. Lose that locket, and your parents' dream is slag." She tucked the memento back under her greasy patchwork overalls. "I know, Pulse." She rolled her eyes, tracing the shape of the locket through the coarse fabric. "It's just that it was the last thing he touched before he and Mom—" She couldn't say the word. She knew they were dead. Nearly 4 years now. The echoing of the drone's propulsion grew. They were getting closer. Alara's eyes let out a mechanical whir as they focused through the metal slats of the dredge's sky. Her ears focused on the ever-present hum of the space elevator's magnets vibrating far above her head. With every burst, another carload of commuters were free from the oppressive gravity of New Geneva. She whispered, "I need to get up there." Pulse knew his role well. A waterfall of text cascaded over the augmented reality of Alara's eyes, and she watched his efforts to hack into the Enforcer's database. He produced a grid map of Scragtown, overlain with a blue blip that was Aurora. Red blips began to populate the map, the Enforcer drones. Her path to the gateway was blocked. "You gotta figure out how to get past them," Aurora whimpered. She could feel a pressing anxiety as she watched the seconds to the Aurora's departure tick down second by second, almost too fast for her to count. Her breath hitched, and a sheen of sweat drenched her forehead. The mechanical voice commanded, "Hatch, now!" With a stumble, Aurora lurched toward the back of her tiny shanty. The whir of servo-mechanical motors spun in her cybernetic arm, and a small arc welder sprung out, already spitting blue flames. With a trembling hand, she guided her cybernetic arm against the rusted grate, the blue flames cutting the metal, melting it in a jagged line. And she managed to cleave a small opening for her to fit through, tumbling into the alley. Through her AR, Pulse's intrusion attempt snarled to a halt against unseen resistance. "Something or someone is trying to keep me out." His voice dripped with frustration. Aurora froze as a beam of light cut through the dust-filled air from the alley. The beam inched closer, cutting over her foot. "They're gonna find me!" she hissed, her heart pounding. "Calm down, kid. You're not scrap yet." Pulse buzzed. "Stay low. I just need a few more seconds to scramble their senses." She slid back into the shadows outside her shanty, the beam of light piercing along the corner of the alleyway. Her muscles were tight, waiting to release the tension in a burst. The beam grew in intensity, then slid past into another alley, and she let the air out of her lungs. Phew, we're safe. They're gone. Her muscles relaxed. Then a flash of light flooded over her body. A small canister bounced along the alley's wall, rolled against the steel toe of her black leather utility boot, and started spewing a plume of greenish smoke, engulfing her in a cloud of noxious gas. It burned like fire in her lungs, and her throat seized, her vision warping as she staggered back. A small, round, floating object slid into the alleyway. The drone's large central eye beamed red as it bobbed up and down midair. "Halt!" A robotic voice penetrated the air from the drone. "Illegal technology detected." "Pulse? About that hack?" Alara's fingers wrapped around a long rusted pipe that had been discarded in the alley. Her heart burst with rage as she pushed past her blurred vision. "You took my parents." Her mind buzzed with adrenaline. "You won't get me that easily." She swung the rusted pipe at the drone with Herculean effort. The pipe missed. The drone didn't. Alara's strength was spent in vain, the heft of the pipe too much to wield. She collapsed against the ground as the drone hovered above. "Perpetrator incapacitated." The cold, dead drawl from the drone mocked Aurora as she lay under the light of its oppressive red eye. The armatures reached out, pressing the cold metal of restraints against Aurora's limp limbs. However, before they could be clamped down, the central red eye of the drone flickered. Then it slid back, retracting its armatures. "Enforcer drone N1Z3, standing down." "That isn't normal," Pulse muttered. "Someone noticed us." Aurora crawled out of the noxious cloud and gulped down fresh air. "God, I hope that didn't fry my lungs." The drone hung motionless. Pulse's override had worked. "Pulse, get me to the gate," she gasped. "My processing buffers are throttled." Pulse responded, strained. "I can't hold them back much longer." She sprinted into the narrow back alleys, her locket thumping against her chest. "I bought you seconds, not safety," Pulse warned. "Whatever's blocking me is adapting." She could hear footsteps joining in with the whir of the drones, and an enforcer officer's voice erupted from down the maze of alleys. "Rogue AI detected!" "They're hunting Pulse now, too." Aurora was spurred forward. "I can't let them get me. Too much to lose. Too much riding on me. My father's dream." Her fingers danced along the imprint of the locket under her shirt. Graffiti covered the cracked brick walls, unspoken injustice laid bare. The divide between those who wanted war with the Imperial Dominion and those who wanted peace tore through Aurora's heart. She could see her parents' faces, blurred in the blast of the explosion that had taken them from her. Did they have to die for their ideals? "Focus, kid," Pulse snapped as though he could hear her thoughts. "That's not your war. Keep on task." Aurora nodded faintly and pushed deeper into Scragtown's twisted arteries. Red blips littered the corners of her AR map, closing in. "They're cutting through me," Pulse snapped. "This shouldn't be possible. They're honing in on us. Make a run for it." Aurora shivered, clutching the locket through the fabric of her shirt. 4 years of dodging raids has taught me the cruel math. Stay hidden or become scrap. She hastened her pace through Scragtown, the market district dead ahead on her map. "Keep it moving, kid," Pulse hummed. "Those drones are hot on our heels." The hum of the space elevator grew into a thunderous moan as she burst into the open market. The sound vibrated through her chest, promising freedom among the stars. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Ladder to freedom." She pressed on, her boots clapping loudly in puddles that shook with every step, their oily rainbow distortions rippling violently underfoot. The crowds trudged over the rough concrete of the busy street, the border gate that allowed chosen citizens of the dredges to pass into New Geneva looming, the enforcer officers scanning ID chips. Aurora could feel the bump of her ID chip under her right forearm. She wasn't one of the chosen. "I can't go through there. They'll catch me for sure," she whispered. "Gotta find another way through." Her chest was aching. Her breath labored. "Move it, kid," Pulse hissed. "Those drones aren't going to give up." A cracked vid screen blared above the crowd. Pro-war protests at Victory Square push for renewed conflict with the Dominion. In related news, Emperor Alaric's failing health raises fear of civil war, fueling calls for the Allied fleets to strike. Civil war? Can't those Imperial scrags think of anything besides war? She huffed. If it wasn't for them, my parents would still be alive. Alara's jaw clenched. "It's only a matter of time, isn't it?" she muttered. Pulse retorted. "It's all those fathead bureaucrats and politicians know." The sound of the drone's approach echoed along the alley walls behind Aurora, and a shockwave of realization shot down her spine. "We gotta get out of here." The street was already turning hostile again. She had seconds, not chances. She scanned the imposing wall that separated the dredges from New Geneva. Then she spotted it. A maintenance hatch, high up along the wall near the faux sky. Aurora darted, weaving through pedestrians to a teetering pile of rusted bins. "Climb, kid, unless you fancy another gas bath." Pulse buzzed. Aurora's throat tightened against the sting that lingered. No more gas, please." The stack of containers teetered precariously as she gripped the rough, rusted metal. Aurora held her breath, feeling the jerky sway with every movement as she scaled the haphazard heap. Her muscles screamed, slick with sweat against the rust-eaten metal. "One slip," she panted. "Wouldn't just be caught. I'd be slag." She couldn't afford the slightest slip-up. Sweat dripped from her chin and earlobes, her t-shirt soaked with her labor. From the corner of her eye, beams of light reflected from numerous alleyways, intersecting the market street, hovering beneath her like a balloon left to float away. "They're nearly here," she gasped, her voice a mere croak under the strain in her muscles. She peered up to see the maintenance hatch still feet away, and slid across the wall in a wide arc. "Almost there." With one final burst of strength, she leapt through the air to the hatch. She could feel the pile of crates tumble out from beneath her. Her sweat-drenched fingers slipped on the tarnished brass door handle. The crates were suspended in the air, moving down toward the drones that were emerging onto the street below, scanning the pedestrians. Then, her fingers gripped the door handle with a thread of strength. The handle twitched with the slightest movement of her fingers, and the hatch swung out from the wall with a violent lurch. Her muscles strained to the brink, and using what little strength she had left within her, she flung her lithe frame through the open hatch, landing on a soft, spongy surface on the other side. As the crates below her crashed against the asphalt of the road far below, Aurora bolted to close the door. The hatch creaked closed under rusted hinges, and she could see the drone's light beams dancing up the wall toward her. With a quick pull, she latched the hatch behind her and collapsed against the alabaster concrete wall, exhausted. Safe for now.